Hey folks, BlackCross here, and welcome back to another video game review, guys. In today's video game review, we are going to be diving into Sandland, another game that was a manga series that was made by the legendary Akira Toriyama. I actually got the name right for once, hopefully. But, yeah, whenever I found out about this one, because, again, I thought this was like a video game itself, only to find out that it was originally a manga series. Recently had an anime that was also released, and now has a video game. And at first I was a little bit skeptical because after the last game that I played, which was Dragon Quest The Adventure of Dai, I was kind of somewhat not like completely disappointed, because there was some aspects that I liked about it, but the main gameplay itself, the story mode, I was a little bit underperformed by that. It was like, it's alright for the most part. But Sandland, it did a little bit better, I feel like. It did a little bit better in terms of the presentation, the gameplay, and the overall entertainment value that it actually has. So what is Sandland? Well, to kind of basically explain it in short term, you're basically a character by the name of Beelzebub, who basically lives in an area known as Sandland, basically a desert. And the first part of the story basically kind of brushes through the main premise, which is that the sheriff is trying to find water source, this legendary spring. And of course Beelzebub, as well as his companion slash friend slash old timer named Thief, accompany him in order to try to find the legendary spring. And at first glance, you know, it's a simple game straight up. But it eventually kind of grows into this bigger feeling game, and it's quite enjoyable, actually, in all honesty. So whereas the main game is, the main story premise itself is pretty good, the gameplay, I feel like, it has this weird balance of like really good to average gameplay. What do I mean? Well, the basic combat itself, where you fight as Beelzebub, is about straightforward as you can get. It's not absolutely amazing, but it's somewhat average to a degree. The gameplay is alright. What really sells well, though, is actually surprisingly the bots. The bots are like basically the tanks, motorbikes, eventually you get to unlock more vehicles and stuff of that nature. It's really cool, and it's one of those things where it's like, it feels weird that on one aspect of the gameplay, you know, the hand-to-hand combat isn't fantastic. It's okay at best, but the tanks is actually probably the best part about it. Like, you'll do normal combat and stuff like that, and, you know, it's nothing too bad, but when you have battles where you have to fight in your bots and stuff like that, that's where it gets interesting, because yeah, the way they made the tanks, they're basically overpowered mechs. They're super souped up. Beelzebub only has the most amount of output in terms of power for regular enemies. So as soon as he runs across, like, say, something bigger, like, say, a flippin' giant alligator, some kind of giant tank or mech, it's required to fight with a tank. And needless to say, the tank aspect is pretty fun. It gets really good later on in the game, where you actually encounter tougher enemies, and depending on how your upkeep of upgrading your tanks and bots and stuff like that, depends on the performance of those battles. Say for example, you get to a point where the bosses gets a lot harder, so therefore you have to switch between using one tank to switching it to another bot. And it gets really technical, and it's really interesting. This is where the part of the game where I feel like it excels really well is, of course, the bots themselves. But again, without going into major story spoilers or anything like that, you venture further beyond Sandland itself. And there's actually a second part of the story after finding the legendary springs and stuff. So again, I won't go into detail, but it spans further than the main premise of the story. To which I actually really like the ideal, and I really love how they've expanded. I love the world layout, and I love how all the different bots and all the different tanks and bikes and stuff are fairly entertaining to ride and drive. I really enjoy it. What really makes it really cool is the customized options. So later on in the game, you'll be encountered with several side quests that allow you to A, customize your bots, and B, to customize your room. Yes, Beelzebub has his own room that you can buy decor items that you can decorate and stuff like that. And you can even use your bots to decor the room itself, which I thought was really cool. I like this. This is really interesting. So while the main game itself is good, the optional side quests excels it a little bit better. And it's just mostly entertaining and really fun to play. I really enjoy it. And of course, even after you beat the main story premise and everything of that nature, there's still a lot more to do after the game. Basically, there's like a post-game continuations of side stories, side quests, and other stuff of the nature. And it's big. It's really big. And to explore all of it is almost impossible, but only because of the fact that you haven't continued on the main story. If it feels like it's as if you can't continue on to certain areas, that's because you're not required to explore it yet. You still need to acquire certain bots. For example, there's like a few main ones, like you have the tank, you have the bikes, you have the fighter bot and everything like that, but you also have like hovercrafts and stuff of the nature that helps you explore other areas. There are jump bots that allow you to jump into higher platforms and stuff like that. So if you feel like you can't explore the area, that's probably because the game doesn't want you to venture there just yet. Not until you get to progress through the main story in order to discover that particular bot that allows you to explore that extra bit of area. So it's really fun. I was very impressed with the bot management of progression, and after getting those particular bots, of the potential upgrade pathways that you have for being able to customize your bots and everything. It's laid out really well. The landscape is really fun. And the weird thing is this, is that despite the fact that at first you start off in the desert, there's a lot that you can do in the desert with the side quests. And that's what surprised me the most, is the fact that even though you're kind of in a barren wasteland, there's a lot to do. And it's like, that was very surprising. I was really surprised by this game. So, whereas Dragon Quest, The Adventure of Dai kind of disappointed me a little bit, Sandland impressed me a little bit better. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you were disappointed by certain aspects, don't worry. Sandlands actually improves a lot. And it released a demo. I remember playing the demo of it. The only reason why I didn't talk about it in my first impressions or anything like that is because I was a little bit let down by the fact of you wasn't really able to do anything progressive per se. You were kind of more like exploring like a square bit of land, basically kind of exploring it, you know, fighting enemies, messing around with the tanks and stuff of that nature. And I think what it was is that it was meant to be like a tech demo. You know what I mean? Like, it was meant to show you, okay, here's what all you can do. Just kind of mess around with it and see what you want to do and stuff like that. And even though you didn't really progress anywhere, you didn't have a goal or anything like that, you were just mostly kind of playing around in a giant sandbox, conveniently enough. And at first I was a little bit on the demo, but after a while I thought to myself, no, I kind of like this. I want to play the main game just to see how it turns out. And after playing the main game, I can finally say for a fact that this really did well. So if I had to rate this one, I'd probably give it a decent 4 out of 5. And I say decent because while the main combat may not be that great, the bots themselves and the side quests and the story and the overall layout of the land and stuff like that is really impressive. I think they did really good with this game. So in my personal opinion, it's worth checking out. So if you ever get a chance, check out Sandlands. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. This is BlackCross signing off. Catch you guys later.